And I innovated a way of taking a look at energy by using an image that's similar to the speedometer on your car. And I call it an energy meter. And it's a choice point guidance system. And the choice point guidance system says that if your light's off over there at a 0, you're neutral at 5, and all the way lights on at 10. These are the qualities that are associated with both of those energy distinctions. So lights off, confused and uncertain, drained, foggy, accidental, limited choices. That's one of the, the hardest things about being stuck in your head is you keep saying the same things over and over again. It's not expansive. And then you're actually stuck or you're in inertia. When your light's on, though, you move from confusion to clarity. You move from uncertain to on purpose with passion. And you go from being drained and energized. It's an amazing feeling. So how many of you, raise your hand, can think of a time when you've been in that fog of uncertainty, and it's like, the saying, a light bulb went on, and all of a sudden you could see the path, and it just completely felt different. Anybody out there felt that? Yeah, it's a miraculous feeling. The good news is that it's something that you can access all the time and use as soon as you whittle through the first question is, am I at a choice point or a day-to-day decision? So I want to tell you stories about people that I think you can all relate to. They were clients of mine, and where I had coaching experiences with them. And I'm going to talk about one from lights off, one from neutral, and one from lights on. So the lights off story. The lights off story is a fellow named Tyler. And he had the very good fortune of inheriting a family business which was financially successful. It wasn't what he would have chosen. If he'd gone out on his own passion quest, he wouldn't have picked that business. But he got it. And he made a decision that he was going to run it no matter what. It was a good idea to keep it in the family. And he was going to do it no matter what it took to run that business. Well, he worked hard. As a matter of fact, Tyler worked so hard at it that he fainted on the streets of San Francisco and was taken to an emergency room. So I'm using this as an extreme example because you can go beyond lights off, and that's lights out, okay? And he came that close to lights out. He was on the emergency room table, still working hard, answering his cell phone and his pager, you guys, in the emergency room. When the emergency room doc, who was probably one of his angels, and we didn't know it at the time, took both of them, picked them up, flung them across the room and said, I'm not even going to treat you an emergency until you stop doing what you're doing. Well, that woke Tyler up. So he went, obviously lived through the emergency room experience, got out in his life, and got some coaching to take a look at where it was that he wanted to go. What was it that would really light him up? So he was clearly at a choice point. And unfortunately for some people, choice points are wake-up calls. That is a wake-up call. Do any of you know anyone that's had a physical ailment and that kind of said, maybe I better stop here and take a look at what I'm doing with my life? Well, luckily he lived through the choice point. And in his decision, the result that he created was he decided that he didn't have to keep it a family business, that he could actually sell part of it, got a qualified buyer, looked for someone that was lights on about buying it. And what he did was then focused on what he loved, which was yoga, and is now the owner, and this was a 3 to 5 year process, is now the owner of his very own, very lights on yoga retreat in Hawaii. And so he has part-time income from the family business and a lot of income from his retreat center. So that was a lights off and went all the way through the stages over to lights on. I'm going to use as neutral my story. So I was 48 years old, and as I told you, I just stopped. I just ran out of steam on my career. I had had a 28-year career in periodontal dental hygiene, and I loved it. I loved making people healthy. I loved the freedom of my own hours. I loved learning new things, and I just loved people in general. So it had a lot that I loved in it. but I did it. After 28 years in one career, regardless of the career, there was nowhere else for me to go. There wasn't anything that lit me up, that called me to get up in the morning. So when I was doing my own search for what lit me up, although that wasn't the language I used at the time, I just thought, what do I love to do? Well, I love to work with people. I love to learn new things. And I cannot find anything in the literature right now, which was where I went to access information. I couldn't find anything that's talked a lot about passion and what it was to do with the rest of your life. I knew lots of stuff about, I found out a lot on how to do things, no problem with that. Like if I'd wanted to be an artist, I could have taken a painting class, you know, lots of how-tos. But nobody that was specializing in what it was that you wanted to do. And at that time, there was one book, count them, one, that talked about passion. And that was What Color Is Your Parachute? And that was my Bible at the moment. How many of you have heard of or read that book? That was everyone in the room. So there I was 12 years ago with that book, still trying to figure out from my head, because that's how books work, what it was that I wanted to do. So I thought, okay, I love to learn. I took a 1.5-year sabbatical, and I went and studied with everybody that I could find at that time that was doing anything related to vision, passion, and energy. Remember, vision, passion, and energy are all linked. You can't have one without the other. So I went into those fields, that broad band of fields, and I studied things from applied kinesiology to interview coaching systems with the early Gallup pollster people. I did Eastern energy systems. I studied heart math physiology. I studied everything that I could find. Well, it was longer. It was 14 years ago when I started the quest. But that related in any way to passion and energy. While I was in the process of learning this, I was starting to get very lights on. So I was moved off the mark of stuck, started to get really lights on, and I thought, you know what? If I'm having such a challenge finding out how to figure out what lights me up, I bet there are other people, and I could, you know, in the same dilemma, and I could take everything that I've learned and put it into a system and start teaching it to other people. Well, that was even before the word coaching was much used, and I did study with a performance coach actually at the time. Back then, in between 92 and 94, most coaching was geared toward peak performance and zone type, you know, living in the zone type things. So I thought, you know, I'm gonna invent something. And so I did. I started and put together a learning system that I ended up calling Lights On Learning. And I started to teach it working with my friends. And so what I found out, and I think for any of you entrepreneurs in the room, some of your very first clients are always your friends. What I found out in that was that there was a huge, huge longing in America to know what it was we were passionate about. Fortunately for me, it's fueled a business that has let me do what I love for 12 years and meet wonderful people all over the US and teach and keep my lights on doing what I love. So I went from a neutral place here, because when I stopped my career and decided, I wasn't lights off, it wasn't that. I wasn't in a bad place or a danger place. I was in a bored place. And and the neutral zone is more bored. This is lots of talk, no action. You know, just